Going live now.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today, which is a very special opening of a very special week of the year. So today we start the launch, we launch our Salt Awareness Week for 2021. And this year, the theme for Salt Awareness Week is more flavor, less salt. I'm your host for today, Ms. Rosanna Pike, the Health Education Officer for the Global Health Advocacy Project at the Heart Foundation of Jamaica, and we're currently on site at the headquarters of the Jamaica Library Service and the Kingston and St. Andrew Parish Library. Today we have a very special lineup. We will start today's activities with greetings from Mrs. Barbara McGaw. She is the project manager for the Global Health Advocacy Project at the Heart Foundation of Jamaica. So at this time, I'm going to welcome Mrs. McGaw to go ahead and give her opening greetings.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me? Can anyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So just on behalf of the Global Project, which is one of the projects under the Heart Foundation of Jamaica, we're very, very happy to partner with the Library Service. And as some of you know, this wasn't the first time, because we're able to do something along the lines of our project late last year. However, this year brings certain challenges. We have COVID, we have nutritional challenges, we have challenges of persons getting healthy food to eat. So last week we launched our front of package labeling campaign. And then of course, this week is Salt Awareness Week. So a lot of the activities are geared around healthy eating. What can we do to be healthier? What can we do to know that the foods that we're eating are healthy and are safe? So I want to commend my team, my hardworking team, who has worked very hard to put this together. And generally, I just want to invite everybody to listen to the presentations. We are very accessible. If there any information you need, we have a lot of handouts, fact sheets and so on. And so just wanted to say thanks and enjoy.
Thank you very much, and well said, Mrs. McGaw. And I repeat, she's the project manager for the Global Health Advocacy Project at the Heart Foundation of Jamaica. And as you know, she said it's a great journey that we've embarked upon with the Jamaica Library Service to once again put on a very educational, informative, session. At this time, I'm now going to invite Ms. Candice Leverage. She is the Director of Corporate Communications and Marketing here at the Jamaica Library Service to come on and give her greetings.
Good afternoon, Mrs. Barbara McGaw, Project Manager, Global Health Advocacy Project for the Heart Foundation of Jamaica, Ms. Marie Powell, Regional Dietitian, Southern Regional Health Authority, and viewers, good afternoon and welcome. The Jamaica Library Service is proud to partner with the Heart Foundation in celebrating Salt Awareness Week, which is being observed today, March 8th to March 14, 2021, under the theme, Less Salt, More Flavor. This initiative is focused on raising awareness of the dangers of consuming too much salt, which we have recognized as a serious issue in Jamaica, a problem that's just not talked about enough. According to the Ministry of Health, 1 in 3 Jamaicans are hypertensive. 4 out of every 10 Jamaicans with hypertension are unaware of their status, and more Jamaicans aged 15 to 74 are developing hypertension. So we have a problem, one that threatens to become even more of a challenge unless we address risk factors, including how much salt we consume. The Jamaica Library Service wants to play our part in sensitizing our fellow citizens of the risks of too much salt consumption, and we want to encourage healthy lifestyles. As such, we have ensured that the resources are available island-wide for persons to educate themselves in an effort to raise awareness of high blood pressure, how to live with it, and also how to adopt lifestyle behaviors to reduce incidences of the disease. So feel free to visit your nearest parish libraries or branch libraries for more information. The JLS has also adapted to serving our communities during the COVID-19 pandemic. Our libraries are open, they are safe, staff is available to assist anyone needing more information. And note that COVID-19 protocols are strictly enforced. We also have on display here at the Kingston and St. Andrew Parish Library an interesting and very detailed exhibition that will provide you all the information that you may need about hypertension. In fact, if you are across the island, you may call or visit your nearest library to obtain related information on hypertension and other health and wellness issues that you might have. We encourage you all to stay tuned to the SALT Week activities for the rest of the week. The presentations planned promise to be enlightening and informative. You may also visit this location today and tomorrow, that's the Kingston and St. Andrew Parish Library, to have your blood pressure checked free of cost by a medical technician. You won't want to miss it. I want to say also thank you to the Heart Foundation of Jamaica for hosting this event. Your continuous work in raising awareness of various cardiovascular health issues does not go unnoticed. We're looking forward to an informative and exciting week of events. So thank you and have a good one. Yes.
All right, thank you so much, Miss Leverage. And that was Miss Candice Leverage, the Director of Corporate Communications and Marketing here at the Jamaica Library Service. Now we're gonna go ahead and turn to the main highlight of this afternoon. This is where I'm going to bring on Miss Marie Powell, who is a registered dietitian and nutritionist. She has been working in the public health sector for over 25 years, and she is employed by the Southern Regional Health Authority in the capacity of regional dietitian. She has a keen interest in public health research and education, pediatric, geriatric, and renal nutrition. And she wants Jamaicans to attain the best nutrition quality of life and is involved in health promotion and education. And she uses various media to achieve this goal. She's a mother, a coach, a mentor, and she believes in justice and fair play. She's also a volunteer and believes in volunteerism, mentorship, and community involvement. Ms. Powell has obtained her Master of Public Health, specializing in medical epidemiology degree from the Northern Caribbean University, and she also holds a Bachelor of Health Science with honors in dietetics and nutrition from the University of Technology, Jamaica. So ladies and gentlemen, let's now welcome Miss Marie Powell.
Good afternoon, everyone. Are you hearing me?
Good afternoon. Yes, we are.
Okay. So good afternoon again. Thanks for that introduction and thanks for the opportunity to speak. I'll be looking at the health harms of overconsumption of salt and NCD. What is salt? Salt, as we know it, is a white crystalline substance. When we think about sodium chloride, we think about salt. So it occurs as a mineral. Salt, in essence, is found in seawater. We use salt to season our food, and salt is also used as a preservative. And I know you can identify with those two uses in food preparation. We tend to use sodium and salt synonymously or interchangeably, but this should not be the case. As indicated on the slide there, salt is a mineral, sodium is a mineral and nutrient. It occurs naturally. It is found in food, especially processed food, and it is contained in preservative. Salt, on the other hand, is a combination of sodium and chloride. So actually 40% of salt is sodium and 60% is chloride. And of course, we add salt to food. Chloride as well imparts the flavor that we get from eating salt. So salt essentially is important. If we think about the health field, we tend to use salt in the form of sodium chloride. So of course, the drip that you get in hospital has sodium chloride in it. So it's actually an essential item. So salt helps the body to maintain blood pressure. It helps to maintain the right amount of fluids in the blood. It transmits nerve signal. It aids in the absorption and transport of nutrients, and it is also important in muscle function. So yes, indeed, salt is important, but it should not be too much. I know we have heard this saying on numerous occasions, eat less salt. You're eating too much salt. Too much salt can have harmful effects. Do you believe in those statements? Whether it is to eat less salt or too much salt can be harmful. So yes, indeed, too much salt can actually affect your health. So we are going to look at the dangers of eating too much salt. So yes, we have short-term effect, because if you eat a lot of salt, it can cause a shift in your body fluid, you'll crave more water. But outside of that short-term effect, which you can deal with, but the long-term effect would include, for example, stomach cancer, heart disease, stroke, chronic kidney disease, and of course, high blood pressure. So those are 5 conditions that can be, come about as a result of eating too much salt. So right here would appreciate that salt indeed is a risk factor for NCD. So just to give some supporting information as to how this determination was made in terms of the effects on salt and the respective medical condition. So there is strong evidence suggesting that high salt diet increase the risk for stomach cancer. One particular study showed that persons who consume 3 grams of salt per day were 60% less, more likely to have stomach cancer compared to those who consume 1 gram of salt per day. So the guideline for salt per day is actually 5 grams, and I'll get into that further in the presentation. Another study found that too much salt disrupts the mucus lining of the stomach, and this may lead to ulcer or inflammation of the stomach lining, which would predispose the person who consumes excess amount of salt to stomach cancer. There is also a spike in kidney problem, because in our Jamaican situation, we have increased number of persons who are affected by chronic kidney disease. And most of this is brought on by uncontrolled diabetes and uncontrolled high blood pressure. So the kidneys helps to regulate the amount of fluid, the blood pressure, and so on in the body. So too much salt will cause less water to be removed. And once you retain water, that will actually increase one's blood pressure. So as indicated before, high blood pressure, where you're having too much salt in the diet, can contribute to high blood pressure, and high blood pressure in itself can damage the kidneys. So if persons have, for example, diabetes, high cholesterol, and other cardiovascular diseases, it can also result in kidney problems. High salt intake also causes a rise in blood pressure, which can cause stiffening of the blood vessels and the artery, and may lead to greater risk of developing stroke, premature death, and heart disease. One study published in the New England Journal of Medicine in 2014 indicated that persons who consume 7 grams of salt per day had a greater risk for heart disease and premature death compared to those eating 3 to 6 grams of salt. So as I said, the recommendation is 5-6 grams, depending on the literature that you're reading from. So once you overconsume, it increases your risk for heart disease, stroke, and premature death. We are well aware of the relationship between salt and blood pressure, are we? So yes, I think we are. So there are numerous studies that have shown a direct relationship between excessive salt intake and high blood pressure, of course. What I want to point out as well is that high blood pressure is difficult to detect, especially at first. And based on the numbers that we have here from the Jamaica Health and Lifestyle Survey, 1 in 3 Jamaicans, are about almost 30% of Jamaicans have high blood pressure. I'll speak further as to the secular trends in salt consumption pattern as well. So there, as indicated, salt increase the risk for NCDs. We spoke about cancer, heart disease, stomach cancer, which one am I missing? And chronic kidney disease, and of course, premature death. So on the slide here, I have data from the 3 lifestyle survey. So there is data from 2001, 2008, and 2017. Highlighted there, I want you to notice that in terms of the percentage of the population surveyed for the 2 studies, the incidence of high blood pressure has actually what? Increased. So based on what we are seeing here, it jumped from about 21% to 25%, and in 2017 to approximately 34%. And it's 4 years later. And if we continue with this trend of high salt intake, you can imagine what the data will show in another 4 years or so. I mentioned diabetes as well, because there is coexistence of diabetes and high blood pressure. And those 2 conditions, if uncontrolled, can increase an individual risk of developing chronic kidney disease as well. What I should also point out is that more females have high blood pressure in comparison to males, as you can see on the slide there. And there's a slight higher number in terms of prevalence when the rural and the urban area is compared. So we do have a challenge on hand in terms of the prevalence of high blood pressure. Here is a slide that is looking at the causes of death in Jamaica. So you have 2009, 2019. So if we look at the chronic disease, here I'm going to pay attention to 2019 data. So why stroke is a risk factor, or is one of the conditions caused from having excess amount of sodium in the diet. Kidney disease is there as well. And if we look at chronic kidney disease, it was number 6 in 2019, and in 2009, 10 years later, it has moved up to number 4. I'm missing something at the bottom. For cancer, for colorectal cancer, that was at number 14, and there's an increase, so it has jumped up by 19% change to position 10 on the leading causes of death in 2019. So if we look at the percentage change, stroke is still at number 1, and it's 14.4%. If we look at chronic kidney disease, moving from number 6 to number 4, there was an 18.2% change. Hypertensive heart disease as well was at number 7, and it has moved up to number 6, and that change over the 10-year period was 14.5%. So yes, we do have a challenge on our hand. We cannot continue with our dietary practices as they are, because salt intake is actually a modifiable risk factor. So you can actually reduce your salt intake. Salt intake is more psychological, just as how a person would drink coffee. So if you want to reduce your salt intake, you just start adding less salt during meal preparation. How much salt is too much? So the World Health Organization recommends less than 5 grams or 5,000 milligrams, or just about 2 grams of sodium per day. Remember that we said that salt, or table salt, is made up of sodium and chloride. So in essence, that translate to about 1 teaspoon of salt per day. So a teaspoon of salt has 2.4 grams of sodium, and the weight is 5 grams. Most persons are consuming around 9 grams of salt a day. Yes? And as I go through the presentation and you observe, you will get an understanding as to why this may be so. And let me add at this point, there is no data so much in Jamaica to see how much salt persons are consuming, but what data is available is the prevalence of hypertension and the number of persons, because I think at least 4 persons say they consume more salt than what they are supposed to. So it is indeed a public health challenge. So if we look at the children for 1 to 3 years old, it should be about 2 grams of salt per day. For 4 to 6 years old, 3 grams is recommended. 7 to 10 years old, they should eat 5 grams, which is about that teaspoon of salt. 11 years and over, including our age group, should have 5 to 6 grams of salt, which is equivalent to 2.4 grams of sodium per day. So we need to be tracking how much salt we are eating. Are you tracking your salt? I hope that you are. So the first place to start is to look at your food label. So once you look in the ingredient list, you will see salt, or you may see sodium. However, when we look at the nutrition facts, what is actually there is sodium. So it gives a figure for sodium and not for salt. So here I have a label projected, and I have provided the formula where you can calculate your salt intake or your sodium intake. So as I indicated on the label, what you actually see is salt, but the nutrition facts give it to you as sodium. So in a particular example here, or what the formula asks you to do, is to multiply the sodium figure that you have here in milligrams by 2.5, and then you divide it by 1,000 to find out how many grams of sodium there is. So for this particular example is 1,600 milligrams multiplied by 2.5 is going to give us 400 milligrams. All right. So we're going to divide that 400 milligrams by 1,000, and that is 0.4 grams of salt. And remember that the recommendation is for 2,300 milligrams of sodium per day. So I hope that you paid attention to this little bit of math that you can actually calculate rather than estimate both your sodium and your salt intake. When we read labels as well, because I also we're using labels to track. So you'll see, for example, foods that indicate low sodium, that it actually has less than 140 milligrams of sodium per 100 grams of that particular food item. There is moderate sodium, so it has less than 400 milligrams per serving, and a high sodium food has more than 400 milligrams. Remember, participants or listeners, that there are ingredients in food that will contribute significant amount of sodium, not just table salt, and it may not be indicated in the label. So through the help of the Heart Foundation, we are demanding the front of packaging labeling that persons can actually know what is it that they are actually consuming. All right. So continue to track our salt intake. A teaspoon of salt has 2,400 milligrams of sodium. 3/4 teaspoon, 1,800 milligrams. Half teaspoon, 1,200 milligrams. And 1/4 teaspoon, 600 milligrams. All right. So that's the amount of sodium that you'd be using. So Jamaicans tend to pour salt into the pot rather than measuring the salt. If they are seasoned with powder seasoning, they pour the seasoning onto the food item rather than measuring the quantity. Yes. And if we are accustomed to having salty foods, then we'll not be able to determine whether the food is too salt or whether it is fresh. So sometimes it is really salty and persons are saying, no, I'm not tasting any salt in it. There is also a scanner that you can use. It's called a Change for Life food scanner. You can download it on your phone. So it actually looks at what's in your food. So it look at the amount of sodium, the amount of sugar, and the amount of saturated fat. So this food scanner actually came out of England. So you can go into the Google store and download, and then you can scan onto your smartphone. So when you pick up your food item, you'll be able to determine the amount of sodium, the amount of sugar, and saturated fat that is included in that particular food item. So the sources of salt in the diet comes from 4 main sources. So most of the salt comes from processed and restaurant food, and this is about 77%. This particular data is from America, from the United States, and I don't think it's any different for us here in Jamaica. It could actually be more. There is naturally occurring salt in foods, and this is about 12%. 5% of the salt comes from added salt, where persons use the salt shaker at the table. So they are serving boiled egg and they sprinkle salt at the table. Persons are eating, for example, cucumber and tomatoes, and they add salt to it as well. Jamaicans eating Jew plum and they add salt to the Jew plum. So persons are advised not to add salt at the table and to add salt to those foods that should be eaten as is. And just about 5% of the salt in the diet actually comes from cooking. So 5% from cooking, just about 6% added at the table, 12% of the salt naturally occurring sodium in food, and 77% comes from processed foods and restaurant food. So here we are looking at some high salt foods. Are you seeing that slide?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. So we're looking at bouillon cube. That's the first one here in the foil. So 1 bouillon has 1,200 milligrams of sodium. Soy sauce is a high sodium product. So a tablespoon of soy sauce has 1,005 milligrams of sodium. 3 slices of pork bacon has 581 milligrams of sodium. 2 slices of turkey bacon has 328 milligrams. 1 slice of ham has what? 320 milligrams. Yes? A slice of bologna has 226. And a cup of soup, this particular item here, has 1,200 milligrams per serving. So a lot of us drink cup soup at our desk for lunch. We give it to our children as a breakfast item. So can you imagine if that child is to continue to eat cup soup into adult age or into adulthood, what will happen to that child? And remember that hypertension is also has a genetic component. A lot of elderly persons are drinking cup soup as well. And we also have to remember that with age, hypertension is a factor. All right. Continuing to look, foods with high sodium content. Jamaicans love nuts and we like salted nuts. So it's 115 milligrams of sodium per ounce. So we don't eat a handful of nuts, which is the serving size. We eat several handfuls and we eat several servings in one day. Sausage is another item that we tend to give our children, a whole can of sausage. There are about 7 pieces of sausage in the container. Each sausage has 110 milligrams of sodium. So 3 pieces of sausage that I have there is 330 milligrams. And you can do the maths for the 7 pieces when you give your child a tin of sausage to take to school. Some persons drink soup mix, so they just open the sachet and they add boiling water and they have it with crackers. So if you're having a whole package of that soup, it's actually 5 servings of 10 milligrams that is in the container. So somebody can do that maths for me. So if 10 grams provided with 500 milligrams of sodium and it has 5 servings, so that's 5, 5, 25. So you'd have exhausted or near exhausted the amount of sodium that is recommended for the day if you actually have that package of soup. So it's not that I'm saying that you cannot use the packaged soup to flavor your soup, but you want to use less of the packaged soup. In addition to cup soup, we are also drinking the packaged noodle soup where you break it and cook it and then you add the bouillon to it. One packet has 1,760 milligrams of sodium. The serving size is actually half, but we drink a whole pack of the packaged soup. So half is 891 milligrams of sodium, while the whole package is 1760. That's 1,760 milligrams of sodium. Persons are eating pickles as well. So persons may use deli meats to make their burgers at home or to make sandwiches for the children. So if you have a 3-ounce pickle, that's 1,22 milligrams of sodium for the 3 ounces. Saltfish is another food item that Jamaicans eat a lot. It is a part of our culture. Salting, whether with brine or table salt, is used in the processing. So whether the fish is desalted or not, the sodium content is just about the same. So for this 100 milligrams is 6,790 milligrams of sodium. So for the persons who do not have high blood pressure or the persons who do not have chronic kidney disease, you'll have to replace some of that sodium with foods that are high in potassium. For example, tomato, sweet potato, oranges, to name a few. Corned beef also is another staple in the Jamaican diet as a food from animal source. 2 ounces of corned beef will provide with 550 milligrams of sodium. And I know you're thinking about the low sodium option, but remember that corned beef is a high fat and a high salt food as well. So you want to limit your intake of that particular food item as well. Now, I'm looking at high salt food ingredients. And right here, this is, what's this here? What item is this? Are you seeing?
MSG.
The MSG, monosodium glutamate, or it's known as monosodium salt, it's known as monohydrate, MSG, among other names. Here is a particular food item, and I have removed the ingredient list. Highlighted in red here are ingredients that are high in sodium. So this is MSG. This one has hydrolyzed corn and soy protein. It also has autolyzed yeast extract and autolyzed torula yeast extract. This particular food item, 1 serving, so will provide 290 calories, but it provides a whopping 1,480 milligrams of sodium. So much of the sodium comes from MSG. All these products here, the hydrolyzed corn and soy protein, the autolyzed yeast extract, and the torula yeast extract also contain MSG. So just to give a little more information on those items there. So the torula yeast extract is a byproduct of the paper industry. So while wood is being processed to paper, the liquid that comes off from the wood pulp is dry into a powder, and it actually tastes like meat. This particular item has negative connotation for the fact that it was previously used in dog food and it is now added to human food. Yes, so it is used, as I said before, to replace MSG, and it is actually rich in glutamic acid. The hydrolyzed corn and soy protein is added to, it is made from boiling, whether soy, corn, or wheat in hydrochloric acid, and the end product is actually MSG. So this is added to hot dog, chili, pretzel, among other food items. The autolyzed yeast extract is actually from baker's yeast. Yes. It makes the food taste nice. And you know that this particular ingredient actually tends to flavor food, and it masks the bad taste of food. So if the food tastes unpleasant, that's why they add to it to make it tasty that you'll want to buy it. Yes. So MSG from these sources is had from these sources among others, and is added to our the food items that we are eating. So it's actually added to the processed food. So as said before, these food are flavor enhancers, and they contain high levels of MSG. So those are the items, those are the additives, those are the ingredients, and I have there some of the food items that they are added to as well. Here we have other high salt foods, and you can identify what they are. So we're using a lot of cheese-based snacks, especially to give to our children. So most of them will have MSG among other flavor enhancers, and that's what we tend to give to our children. For one, these items are actually low in protein, but the discussion tomorrow will look at that particular topic. So there are certain foods that we tend to eat and think that, well, these foods are low in salt, but these foods have hidden salt, and they're actually high in salt. So for example, there's 150 milligrams of sodium in a slice of bread. So your whole wheat bread tends to have a higher sodium content in comparison to your white bread. 1 cup of milk has about 120 milligrams of sodium. Half cup of ice cream will provide you 90 milligrams of sodium. I had to add the ketchup because a lot of us have a lot of ketchup. So you can get about 150 milligrams of sodium per tablespoon. Salad dressing as well is a high source of sodium. For a 2 tablespoon portion, it ranges from 260 to 300 milligrams of sodium. Hot pepper here has 120 milligrams of sodium per serving. Breakfast cereal as well will have some amount of sodium. So for example, some dry cereal will provide you with about 200 milligrams of sodium per serving. And so most of these cereals are what we call ultra-processed foods. Canned beans, for example, will provide 240 milligrams of sodium per 4 ounces. So I added this slide for you to understand that some foods that we take for granted is contributing sodium in the diet. Other foods based on the way it is manufactured will add sodium. As indicated, we spoke about bread, buns, and so on. Sodium is actually added as a part of the ingredient. And you have biscuits that are dredged with both salt and sugar. So please be mindful of the items that are dredged with salt. So our fries are dredged with salt. So one would want to start removing the salt shaker from the table. So if you're actually doing fries, it can be done in the oven without the added oil, and to leave the salt shaker behind. Now we have looked at the risk associated with too much salt and the conditions that can result. We have identified foods that contribute a lot of salt, in terms of the ingredients that are added, what goes on in the processing. So we need to take action. So we need to look at steps that can be taken to reduce sodium intake. So the first suggestion is to start early. And to start early are looking at childhood, where we train our children to accept foods that have less salt in it. So it's simply adding less salt during the cooking processing and no salt at the table. So that should help to reduce the risk of developing hypertension in adolescents and into adulthood. Because yes, we have adolescents who are hypertensive as well. In terms of action, you need to read your labels, look at what is on the label. So if you see an item that has more than 200 milligrams of sodium, you need to put it back on the shelf. Remember, some products may be labeled no salt, but in truth and in fact, they contain other ingredients which do have sodium. Another strategy is to cook without salt or limit the amount of salt and flavor foods with herbs. So here we have garlic, there is thyme, there is onion, ginger, scallion, there is pepper, there is pimento, oregano, cinnamon, chili powder, rosemary, basil, to name a few. So there are a lot of herbs that can be used to season. Remember, as I said, that salt is a taste that is learned. Once you start reducing your salt intake, after 2 days, it becomes natural. Another strategy that can be used, as being said before, is to avoid adding salt at the table. What you need to remember as well is that foods have natural sodium in them. So you can actually put chicken in water and cook it with your herbs and you will not miss the salt. You can cook ground provisions and you would not miss the salt from your ground provisions. Remember, meat, dairy, bread, shellfish all contain sodium. So you want to watch the quantities that you're having. So in essence, you want to eat smaller portions of salty food. Another strategy, and a very important one, is to limit takeaway and fast food. You want to limit restaurant and fast food. So I did not say to avoid. The recommendation is to limit. You want to select fresh or frozen vegetables. Why? We know that canned foods tend to have high sodium level, and salting is a part of the processing. So you can have fresh vegetables and fruits without the added salt. Just to add that if you are taking vitamin or painkillers that you dissolve in water, each tablet can actually contain 1 gram of sodium per tablet. So if you are asked to manage your sodium intake, then what you'd want to do is to use an alternative to the effervescence tablet. All right. So the key takeaway from here, 1 in 3 Jamaicans have high blood pressure. 4 in 10 do not know their status. Eating too much salt can lead to stomach cancer, high blood pressure, heart disease, strokes, and chronic kidney disease. Adults should eat no more than 5 grams of salt per day, and that's equivalent to 1 teaspoon of salt, or 2.4 grams or 2,400 milligrams of sodium. Please do not add any salt to the food that you're preparing for babies. Persons tend to add salt to the meals, not sure why. And so, because babies are introduced to salt early, so they'll grow up wanting to have more salt in their diet. The best way to reduce salt in the diet is to have fresh fruits and vegetables. Remember, processed and packaged foods and restaurant foods are responsible for most of the food that people eat. Yes, you want to cook your own meals at home and you want to season with herbs and spices to flavor food. during cooking and at the table instead of adding salt. Given the health risk that is associated with excess salt intake, the Ministry of Health has implemented several initiatives aimed at tackling this particular problem. In essence, is to help Jamaicans to reduce their salt intake. So there's a food-based dietary guidelines for Jamaica. It has a food plate and it has 8 dietary guidelines. One of them is reduce your intake of salty and processed foods. Also, there's the National School and Nutrition Standards. School may be out right now, or some with our minimal classes going on now. However, these guidelines will ensure that more locally grown foods are used in the canteens in the school. In addition to that, the Ministry of Health and Wellness is collaborating with the Caribbean Institute of Health Research. What they're planning to do with this particular study is to look at the practices of Jamaicans in relation to salt consumption and looking at the salt content of foods. That's what's available in the restaurant and also what is available from packaging. So this data, that's from the collaborative effort of the Ministry of Health and Wellness and the Caribbean Institute of Health Research, is to be used to drive initiatives aimed at reducing blood pressure, its associated complication, and ultimately translate to a reduced salt intake among the Jamaican population. So as we celebrate Salt Awareness Week, the theme, as you see there, is more flavor, less salt. Let us add flavor to our meals by using a little pinch of salt and a big pinch of fresh herb as we avoid powdered seasoning and processed food. I urge the nation to bolster a collaborative response to control the high intake of sodium chloride that can lead to high blood pressure, which is a risk factor for NCDs. For example, stomach cancer, heart disease, and stroke, and chronic kidney disease. Eat more locally grown foods, less salty and processed foods, and limit your intake to 1 teaspoon of salt per day. This is worthwhile. You can save your life, reduce death and disability attributable to NCDs. So salt comes in different names, 12 different types of salt. However, regardless of the salt, you're encouraged to eat less salt. That's the end of my presentation.
Right there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, a very detailed yet impactful presentation from Miss Marie Powell, the regional dietitian under the Southern Regional Health Authority. Thank you so much for that, breadth of information, Miss Powell. And I myself, was there doing my screenshots on like those high salt foods and how to calculate, because sometimes I can tend to get mixed up, when converting sodium to salt. All right, so thank you so much for that reminder. This time, I'm going to open the floor to any questions, concerns, or comments to the public. So those on Zoom, feel free to post your questions, any comments you may have through the chat. I am gonna go ahead to check the YouTube Live and Facebook Live just to see if anyone from the public has any questions. All right, I'm not seeing any pulling in from Facebook. And none either from the YouTube. I do see we have a few comments though from the Zoom chat. Most persons are saying your excellent presentation, very informative. They're thanking you, very good presentation. And there's also one that says it's important to look at the nutrient profile model from PAHO, which suggests that the ratio of sodium to total calories should be 1:1. All right, yeah, that's a good comment. And then for the public who probably don't know, it's like a it's a Pan-American Health Organization and WHO's. It's like a classification system for foods that are have excessive amounts of, you know, added salt, added sugars, salt, trans fat, total fat, and all of that. All right, and it uses a ratio profile. All right, so I'm still not seeing any more questions or comments. So at this time, before we go, I'm going to go ahead to share a very, you know, short clip. It's a jingle from our campaign. Just one word. Okay, so Andre is asking, can we look back at the second to last slide showing the different names of salt?
Oh,
Okay,
just
so
a
she's.
minute.
Mhm.
Not sure what is that. Oh, hold on. Just a minute, Andrea. Oops. Hold a second for me.
Division, good afternoon. Second one, this was forwarded to in here. Let me just double check to see if he's.
Just a minute.
Simpson, all right, no problem.
All right, there they are. I did not mention, I didn't want to go into the different kinds of salt because persons who have high blood pressure, persons who have chronic kidney disease have to be mindful, especially those with chronic kidney disease, not to use the salt substitute because some of them may have a high potassium level in them. All right. So those are some of the salts. It's about 12 different kinds of salt. So regardless of which of the salt the person is consuming, they need to limit the salt intake.
All right, thanks so much for that. I see someone else had their hand raised. I'm not seeing it on my end, but feel free to type your question in the chat or go ahead to voice it. Ms. Sharon Dawson.
Hi, everybody. Are you hearing me?
Yes, we
good
can.
afternoon.
Okay. I just wanted to explain a little more the comment you read about the profile and the ratio. So Ms. Powell had put up a food label for one particular packaged food. So the ratio thing would help persons to determine yes, that particular one packaged item might seem to give you a lot of leeway for the rest of the day. But one good way of determining if each packaged food in itself is a healthier choice is if the amount of sodium is equivalent to the number of calories in the serving that you're gonna have. So I can't remember the exact numbers that was in the package that she had, but I remember the calories said 230, and I don't remember the amount of sodium.
It's 160 milligrams of sodium.
Right, so it was 160 milligrams and 230 calories. So that would have been a better choice because the amount of sodium was actually less than the amount of calories for that one serving. Right, so that's another
Thank
good
you.
way that persons can use to decide whether packaged foods are a good choice.
All right, thank you so much for that as well. All right, so I mean, every day we learn something new, right? All right, any other questions, comments from the public? All right, seeing that there are no more, I will not hold us up any longer. I'm just gonna go ahead before we go to share a quick clip or jingle with you. Miss Paul, could you, okay.
Food sweet, but you know what you eat?
Me glad the ox cause it not funny. Not funny. Me say help value more than money. If no fun healthy things in on the bag. Put a warning on the front label, not the back. Enough sugar where you add. Put it on the front label. Enough salt where you add. Put it on the front label. Only for fats where you add. Put it on the front label. We no want search for the facts. We want the warning on the front of the pack. We no want a heart attack. We want stay on track. Put it on the front label, not the back.
A message from the Heart Foundation of Jamaica, Ministry of Health and Wellness and partners.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was a short clip or a jingle from our campaign. And on that note, I close this evening. Tomorrow we'll be here again, same time at 2 p.m. where we'll have a presentation from Miss Melinda Henry, the parish nutritionist for St. Catherine. And she will talk to us on chips, snacks, salt, and your health. So on this note, I bid everyone a very pleasant afternoon. Do have yourselves, a safe journey home. Keep safe, keep your distance, and walk good, everyone.